It's time for Sustainable Living with Glenn Boblitz, the show that helps you be prepared to care for your family regardless of the circumstances that may come your way. Now, here's your host for today, Mark Lamb.
Sustainable Living Made Easy. We're in part two of a show that we started actually last week. And where are we going to pick it up there, Glenn?
Well, we got to talking about apples and selecting the apples, so that's what I thought we'd do. We'd finish up on that and give you a good selection of apples that I think would do your family good. If you have a certain criteria you want for your apple, my wife wants an apple tree that she can just go out and pick and put in the fruit bowl.
Right.
Well, like I said, that Gala is a good one.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm going to give you three really good apples. One of them is the Arkansas Black. One of the things I like about it, it's a smaller, compact tree. If you don't have this huge yard, it's a nice, compact tree, little pruning. You can keep that thing down where you could just about pick the whole tree from the ground, depending on how you prune it. You may have to use a 6-foot ladder if you let it grow a little larger as a partial shade tree too. But that's one reason I like it. It's a good, compact tree, puts out a lot of fruit. The bad side of that one is it needs a pollinator, a cross-pollinator.
Okay.
A good one would be like a Golden Delicious or a Red Delicious. Either one of those will cross-pollinate that. So you're going to have an orchard by the time I'm done talking. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it certainly sounds that way. Anyway, they're really good for baking. They're an excellent juice apple. If you're going to juice your apples to have a winter supply of real juice, not the stuff you get at the store. And it's a total different flavor when you do it yourself. Mm-hmm. You ever made apple butter or applesauce?
Applesauce, but not apple butter.
Okay, well, you were just one step away from apple butter.
Okay.
You continue to cook apple butter down till it caramelizes a little bit and gets that good golden brown color.
Yeah.
But it changes the flavor a lot when
Yeah.
it caramelizes, and that's the apple butter part.
Interesting.
And some people put like cinnamons and things like that into it. You can do it any way you want. It's your apple butter. The other thing I like about the Arkansas Black, it's an excellent storing apple.
Okay.
Because the skin is fairly slick and non-porous, and has a natural waxy coating on it, it'll store a long time.
Okay.
It's a good firm apple. So you can have these apples all winter long if you have the proper storage, which is in-ground storage or in a very cool, dry place in your basement. The coolest, driest place you can find in your basement. Not necessarily driest, but just temperate. The idea on storing about anything is to keep the temperature stable, not some big fluctuation. That's why a garage doesn't work very well.
Okay.
Summertime, it gets real hot, and then it'll drop down and get cool. Those kind of air movements and temperature movements tend to mess up storage of fruits, even if it's canned.
Okay.
So that's one, the Arkansas Black. Then we go to the Gala, which come in popularity probably 8-10 years ago. Kind of a stripy looking apple, but it's a really good crisp apple. They last a long time. That's why I do like them. But they are a good crisp apple, just a plain old eaten apple. And what you see in the store is not the size that those things can grow to.
Oh, okay.
I've got one, and I've got a picture of it, and it was 1 pound apple. That's bigger than a softball, folks.
Yeah.
I'm going, wow. Now that's if somebody was selling them things, that'd be worth buying a bag full of them. The Gala is a fast-growing tree, and it's a heavy producer. Now, that sounds great until it starts breaking limbs. So that goes back to proper pruning. You got to prune so it can handle the weight. Some of my trees are putting out 300 and 400 pounds of apples.
Holy cow.
So if your limbs are real long but thin, them things get to drooping down, and next thing you know, and they continue to grow and start breaking limbs. So what I've had to do is on one of the trees that just, an overachiever. We've had a couple do that to us. it just put out so many apples. It was just a great pollinator season. You had to go through and thin them out, just pull off some apples because it was getting too heavy.
Okay.
You know, you got 10 apples
break
on this
something.
little limb, and you go,
Yeah.
it ain't gonna make it.
Right.
So you pull off the smallest and scrubbiest looking ones, and by the end of the season, man, you got these big, beautiful apples that people go, holy cow. Pluck it off and put it on a scale. The thing says 1 pound, and you go, I grew a 1 pound apple. Holy cow. I trimmed my sister's fruit trees. This is 15, 20 years ago. They just weren't producing nothing but naughty little apples. And I whacked the crap out of this thing. And she goes, you have killed it. I said, no, I didn't. I said, it's going to probably be 2 years before you see an apple on here.
Right.
But when they come, they'll be much better. We grew a red delish apple that was 5 inches tall. Wow. Now, I put it in my T-shirt and shined it all up like, you know, the kind of apple you would give your Sunday school teacher.
Right.
But you talk about a pretty apple. I mean, you look in the dictionary, and they got the little picture of the apple. That was that apple. It was just a perfect shape.
Yeah.
So big, and my sister had to agree with me, which she doesn't like doing all the time. Had to agree that I did a good job pruning her trees. And these trees were probably 35 years old at
really?
the time.
Oh, wow.
They
So
just
they had
hadn't
some
been,
age on
yeah,
them.
they just hadn't been cared for in a long time. And I went in there and whacked 20 feet out of them right off the bat. You know, I'm not climbing 20 feet for that
Sure.
5-inch apple. If it's down low enough I can reach it, I'll harvest it. All right, so Galas. They're crisp apple. They're a fast-growing apple. They're a heavy producer. Excellent for baked goods. Pies. Oh, man, they do a good pie because they don't fall apart. They don't turn to mush. So that's important on a blue ribbon pie. You know, you want to know you're eating apples, not, you know, mush. And they store well. Same kind of skin texture as the Arkansas Black.
Okay.
So, being that it's a very popular apple, being it's a very good eating apple and baking apple, man, this thing kind of sounds like an all-around apple, doesn't it?
Yeah.
That's why it's so popular.
Right.
I don't know why more people don't grow about it. I guess it's just ingrained in them to grow red delicious and golden delicious, which is probably what the box stores all carry. But
right. You know, they've tested it. I mean, I'm saying tested as in marketed it.
They're starting to grow some better or bring in some better varieties, and so I guess it's more purchasing better varieties for the public. Tractor Supply last year had a super amount of varieties of apples. I was pretty shocked, and I bought several of them. Now they get their apples from a mega grower, probably Fedco or one of the big companies.
Okay. And
if you're going to buy an apple tree and don't want to pay $50 for it, you would go to Fedco or Gurney or one of the big producers now and buy
this time of year.
Your bare root, because it's not going to come in a pod. It's going to be bare root. But you have to do that and pay for it ahead of time.
I see. Okay.
Yeah, and they will ship it sometime between February and March.
Okay.
Now, when they go to pull these plants out of their bedding, they pull them out, wash them off, wrap them in some wet newspaper, and put them in a box and ship them straight to you. They do this early so they don't cook in transit. And don't dry out in transit. But for that, you save quite a few dollars. You know, you may be able to pick one up for $19-20. The bigger the tree, the more you pay.
Right.
Because the bigger the tree, the older it is, the more care they have to give to it.
Right. They've had
right.
An
So
investment.
if you get an 18-inch tree that's actually may have 12 inches of root hanging down, but the tree itself is only about 18 inches. That's probably a 1 to 2 year old tree.
How about that?
If you see the ones at Tractor Supply that are in the 3-gallon pot, that may be a 5-year-old tree.
Okay.
Now, what I like about that is it may start producing that year. 'Cause it takes about 4 to 5 years for a plant to get established, or tree to get established before it puts out fruit. Probably won't, but the next year you should have fruit. So the bigger the tree that you buy, the quicker you're going to get fruit. You probably won't be able to afford as many, but you will at least have a tree that you know you're going to be getting fruit fairly soon. And most of them have been pruned at least once, maybe twice. And the guy that pruned it at that big tree farm, he knew what he was doing. So he said, okay, I want this tree to be shaped like this, so the customer has this good shape right off the bat. So is it worth the money? For a novice, I'd say yes.
Because they want to see results.
Right. Rather than buying 10 trees,
buy
a 5-year-old tree and buy 2 of them, and then save your pennies and buy 2 more next year. And by then you should have educated yourself on how to prune and properly care for all your trees. That's the key. You spent the money, you made the investment, you're going to have to do some homework to maintain that investment. Makes sense.
Yeah.
All right. Honeycrisp, that's another super popular one now that you can actually purchase. There for about 4 or 5 years, you really couldn't buy a Honeycrisp tree, nor a Gala, because they were a new variety. So only the big apple producers and orchards could afford to buy them. Well, now they've got a lot of cuttings and grafted a whole bunch, and now you and I can buy them. And it's well worth an investment. The name says it all. Honey, meaning it is a sweet apple, and crisp. That's what everybody wants in an apple.
Right.
As far as sugar content, these are pretty high up on the sugar content, as the name implies. They also need a pollinator, but guess what? That Arkansas Black can be the cross-pollinator. And that's important because without a cross-pollinator, some of these trees won't produce. And without the bees, none of them are going to produce. Yeah. That would probably be your next thing to invest in is some bees. It'll help your garden. Well, I think we ought to do a whole show on bees.
Yeah.
I've got several hives. A friend of mine got me into it. Her daddy and granddaddy did it, and nobody in the family really took it up.
Really?
So she did.
Wow.
She is tough. She gets stung like you would think a mosquito bit her. She just, brush it off and go on. She's so used to it. I hate to get stung, but it's part of dealing with bees. And it's not like they attack you. Most of the time, you're out in the orchard and the bees are flying around. If they're on the tree, they care less about you. Now, you go mess around their house, and they'll give you a warning. They actually headbutt you. Do you know that? A honeybee comes out, there's always a couple guards on the front.
Yeah.
The honeybees come out, and they headbutt you. And you can feel them bump you.
Right.
Now, that's
kind
your
of
warning.
A warning shot, yeah.
Some of them are a little grouchy, and you only get one warning shot. Some of them will bump you 2 or 3 times.
And then?
Most people do the stupid thing and smack him.
Oh.
Now, the guy's already mad.
Right,
And you just smacked him. Now he knows that you want to fight. And he come armed. You are not. So you get dinged, and you wonder why. I hate bees. Well, you smacked him. Do that to anybody out on the street and see if you don't get dinged back.
Yeah.
Okay, this honeybees the same way. But out in the trees, if you're out middling around in your trees, your kids are middling around out in the trees, the bees are flying around, don't freak out. They have no interest in fighting you.
Right.
They're not trying to protect nothing. They're just hungry. You can pet a bee, and he will not sting you. As long as you ain't petting him at the front door. So that's all. So keep that in mind. That's his house. Be respectful.
Yeah. Wow.
All right. That's enough on bees. We'll do a whole, show.
I'm more interested in petting a bee. I want to know more about that.
Yeah, they're cool. All right, we got how do you plant that tree? 2 to 3 times the diameter of the pot that it's in, or the root ball itself.
Mm-hmm.
And the root ball be swelled out 3 or 4 inches on a bare root plant.
Mm-hmm.
So if it's 3 to 4 inches, you need at least 8 to 12 inch hole.
Okay.
Don't go crazy and throw the fertilizer to it. They're baby trees. They don't eat a whole lot,
Mm-hmm.
and it will burn up the tender roots.
Okay.
It's best to not even do that.
Okay.
You just plant the tree, make sure it's got good soils in there. You could have good garden soils if you want to put that in. And mix it in the dirt, and it doesn't matter if you got a whole bunch of red clay. I'd rather you amend your soil the year before, but that's beside the point. I'm just trying to get to the size of the hole.
Right.
Now, if you have bought a tree from a bigger dealer that has 3-gallon pot, 2 to 3 times that pot is what you should be planting. So now you may be digging a bigger hole because it's a bigger tree.
Right.
Now, because it's more mature, don't think that the roots are not tender still, because you're going to plant that thing. It's been protected by a
Right.
pot.
You're going to disturb it.
You're going to disturb that. You're going to open up little micro wounds in so a little Osmocote. You ever hear of Osmocote? It's like a time release capsule.
Okay.
Only it looks like a BB.
Right.
You could put a little bit of that in there, and that's about it.
Just
Lots of water for the
Okay.
first year. Just make sure that thing has lots of water, because summer's coming on as you're doing this, and make sure that it's got plenty of water all year round, so the roots can take off and establish themselves, because it'll do that before it does anything.
And
Kind
is
of like
that-
life, got to have a firm foundation.
Is that another reason that you kind of want to go much bigger to give that? You don't want it to be that hard packed.
Right.
Dirt.
If you don't make it bigger than your pot, they'll just try to take off and hit the wall.
Right.
Kind of like life,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
hit the wall and nothing much happens after that. So
So as it gets
loosen
bigger, it
that-
gets stronger and
Right.
larger, and it can penetrate
Now-
maybe beyond.
now the roots will eventually colonize that whole area.
Mm-hmm.
However big the crown of the tree is how
Right.
big the root system is
Okay.
in the ground. And the faster you can get that established, the faster you can get to the fruiting stage. So,
Okay, got it.
So that's size. And the depth you want to go is 1.5 times the depth of your root systems.
Right. Okay.
So if you got a 1 foot long root system, you want to go 1.5 feet deep,
beyond that. Okay.
and just churn it up, break up the soils, amend it a little bit with some little garden soils if you want to. That's okay. And just throw the water to it. You don't want to plant your tree too deep. Now, because you've disturbed that soil and loosened it all up, over the next year, it's going to sink back down. So if you've planted it even with the ground, and now the ground sinks over the next year,
Right.
now your tree base is below ground.
Sure.
That's where disease starts.
Ah.
So my suggestion is always 2 inches above the
Okay.
surrounding soil,
Okay.
and let that settle
Yeah,
down.
room to
And
settle.
by the time it settles down, it'll be even with the ground, back to ground zero, just where it's supposed to be.
Okay.
And if it does sink down, doesn't that sound like a place for a puddle?
Yeah. Exactly.
Right. That's not a good thing.
Right.
You never see a tree in the woods that's in the ground.
Right.
It's always shaped up out of the
Up
ground,
out.
mounded out out of the ground.
Right, exactly.
Kind of sheds the waterway to the
Yeah.
outside.
Yeah. Almost. Yeah.
Almost like that design part
Yeah.
again.
Construction. You want to do that with your house too.
Yeah. Good rules of thumb. Let me see what else we got. Oh, most of the trees you're going to get are grafted.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean by a grafted tree? And the reason they do that is some of the varieties that they have developed, the fruiting part of the tree, which you would think the whole thing is, but it's not, maybe a little weaker in some areas of characteristics than others. Some don't draw up water fast enough, and they don't do good in hot weather. So they cut a piece of signwood off, which is the growing part of the tree, soft part of the tree, a little limb, and they cut a crabapple tree or a different developed root system, a wild apple, because the wild apples are tough. They're disease resistant. They're drought tolerant. They got all the toughness you want,
Right.
but they make crappy apples. So you take the tough root system and marry it to the great Gala's apples, that it will produce all this great fruit you want. And they do that by cutting them on a little angle, put a little notch in them. There's several techniques. Put them together and put a little piece of tape around them. And they mend themselves back together. That was an artificial heart transplant we just did on an apple tree. Growing a new limb, Man can't even do that. And God says, well, I got this easy. You can also get a tree that has 5 different kinds of apples on it. Did you know that?
No, I did not know that.
Rather than graft the whole tree, they just graft one little limb onto a larger tree, of course. Let's say you put a red delicious limb on this side of the tree and a yellow delicious on that side of the tree. Now, do they do great? No. But they are a dang novelty and a half.
Oh, sure.
So you could have 5 trees in one. Yeah. In fact, you can buy them that way.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Now that's $100 tree. But how cool is that?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. The root stock, and that's what I'm talking about when we talk grafting, the bottom part, that wild root, that crab apple.
Yeah.
Depending on which root stock you've used, depends on how big your tree gets.
Okay.
That part of the tree has the DNA that controls the top of the tree. So you're getting DNA information from the rootstock into the top, and it grows 40 feet high. Well, that's probably not what you want. So they used dwarf crabapple trees that they know stay small.
Right.
So now we've got a dwarf Gala because we cut the branch off of it, stuck the Gala in.
Yeah.
The rootstock says be small, but be fruitful.
Right. Sound like a commandment.
I was just thinking, now which one is that? But at any rate, it must have happened because I've met a lot of fruits. In my lifetime, I've met a lot of fruits. They've probably been grafted, I'm not sure. But so that's how all your trees that we're getting come in. Now, you got to be careful with that graft. Sometimes that graft is really low. So if you throw a bunch of mulch up around this thing, some people like mulch, some people don't. I'm not a big fan of it. So if you put a bunch of mulch up and it touches where that union is, it'll put out a limb from that crabapple tree. And you go, where'd that limb come from? It's way down low. And if you let it grow, it'll take over your tree because it's much faster growing. So you don't want to do that. You don't want to cover up that union right there. And sometimes you'll see them on older trees. There'll be a big knot right in the middle of the tree trunk. Well, that's just the union that happened 10 years ago when they grafted it.
Got it.
And it's not a perfect match, so, the tree said, we'll make do and put this big knot around it, and it'll be okay. Hard to believe that it can mend itself that well. I mean, there's got to be communication going on, I mean, it's amazing to me.
Sure.
It's a good idea to put a couple stakes around your tree. Wind will beat up these young trees, and they rock back and forth in the wind, which keeps breaking all the little root hairs that are trying to grow and establish. So what I like to do is just drive a couple 2x2 stakes in the ground, 5-footers, and using cloth to tie them with, strips of cloth, So you're tying it from 3 different directions. The wind can blow in any direction at once. It may have a little wobble, but it's not going to beat the tree up.
Right.
After it's a couple years old, you can grab the tree and watch the root system. If it doesn't move anymore, you can get rid of that. Some people leave them on. You can do that too. But wherever you tie to that tree, don't tie it so tight that it cuts into the bark.
Right.
I don't like wire. I don't like nylon. I don't like any straps. I like the cloth because the cloth will actually stretch and rot off.
Oh, I was going to say
by that
deteriorate.
time, by that time, you know the tree's all good. Now, I don't know what it is about an apple tree. Deer love them.
Yeah.
They will come and prune your new limbs where you didn't want them to.
Mm-hmm.
So you may have to cage them. Where I'm at, terrible time with deer. When I first started out, I lost several of them to it. And I go, okay, I know what to do here. And got a lot of deer meat that year, but I went around and caged everything up, and they do okay. Once I get them up 6, 7 years old, you can pretty much take the cages away. They're not going to rub on it too much. You know,
Okay.
they're fairly large. If you got a lot of deer, leave the cages on. Because the bucks will come in and mark their territory regardless of how big or little the tree is.
Yeah.
So that depends on where you live. Some people will paint the bottom of the tree with lime, unslacked lime, and that keeps ants and things from coming up on the tree. It also stops the bark borers. You ever seen a tree that's got little dots all the way around it, little
Yes.
holes in
Yeah.
it? It looks like a woodpecker went right around that. Everybody says it's a woodpecker. It is not. It's called a bark borer beetle.
Oh,
And
okay.
they live in the ground, and they live in the crevices of the trees. So, and they will damage your trees. They cut a hole in the bark, which is like poking a hole in your skin, and let in bacteria and things. So you don't want to do that. So a lot of people will paint the bottom of them with unslacked lime. That keeps that from happening. It also deters rabbits. Now, what's a rabbit got to do with an apple tree or peach tree? In hard times, they will eat the bark off your tree.
Okay.
It's called girdling. They go right around the bottom and cut the bark all the way around it. Your tree's going to die because it's been cut off from its food supply and water supply. So that's another good reason to paint the bottom of that tree. Well, you can dispatch the rabbit too if you like, or have your dog chase them out of the orchard. But rabbits will learn to run from little dogs, and then they learn that the little dog's really just playing and not trying to kill them, and they'll just have a good time. And rabbits play, believe it or not, and they'll come back and still eat your stuff. So that's the guy you may have to dispatch. Or have someone else do it if you don't have the heart to it. They're a cute little fuzzy bunny. You don't want to put a bullet in his head, but I'm that guy. Spacing of your trees. That goes back to the description when you first buy them. How big is this tree going to get? Obviously, dwarf tells you it's going to be a little shorter tree. But the old varieties, they'll get 30 feet tall, even with good pruning. They'll just keep growing, and if you don't prune them, really whack them back and take some serious meat out of it and get it to turning in the direction, so they'll go 30 feet high. The smaller dwarf stuff, they'll go 15, 20 feet high. Good pruning, they'll stay right at 8, 10 feet. That's what you want. So when you buy your tree, look at that column. How high does this tree get? How wide is it going to get? And that goes back to your pruning. Now, I suggest about 25 feet between trees. Cherry
25,
trees.
okay.
Yeah, 25 feet between trees. Now, you can alternate your rows. So row 2 is in the middle of the row next to it. So it would be at 12 and a half feet, but it's still 25 feet between the rows. So what you're going to end up with is a canopy of fruit trees that won't shade anybody else. If you want fruit to ripen, especially peaches. Peaches love the sunshine.
Mm-hmm.
Apples do okay, partially shaded, but peaches do not. Peaches like full sunshine.
Okay.
So if one tree is shading it for 5 to 6 hours a day, that side of the tree will have slow ripening fruit. And maybe the morning side has better fruit. And those on the shady side may never ripen.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, they may fall off before they ever ripen. There's some nutrients that regulate how a peach tree ripens. I had one that was probably 8 years old. It did okay, but the peaches come out. They were fairly good, but it never would ripen. I wanted to chainsaw it down, and come to find out it was my own fault. I didn't check the soils around it. Didn't do my homework. It wasn't the tree's fault. I wasn't feeding it. So once I figured out that it was a potassium deficiency, then I took care of that. And got horrendous peaches off of it that actually ripened. I got good peaches. They just never would ripen. I mean, there's nothing worse than a tree that will not produce. And the Bible tells you what you should do about that, If it does not produce good fruit, you hack it down and burn it with the tares. I was that close.
Right.
And I had a talk with that tree and said, okay, I'm going to feed you. And if you don't do it this year, you're on the burn pile.
Yeah, you're done.
It said, okay. So I cut peaches off that tree. Some of these peaches trees that are 7, 8 years old are putting out 400 and 500 pounds of fruit. Mm-hmm. That's pretty phenomenal.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Just one little peach tree.
Wow.
So if you've got a couple peach trees, a couple apple trees, you have a sustainable source of fruit. Mm-hmm. Now, if you don't have room for trees that size, or you just don't have enough light for that size, you're going to have to go find something else. Mm-hmm. But you need that vitamin C. We're always talking about nutrients and being sustainable. And one of the things that you need the nutrients for is your immune system. So having vitamin C is very critical, especially this time of year.
Yeah.
So there's different things you can plant. Cherry trees don't mind a little bit of shade. They tend to only ripen on one side of the tree when that happens, but they're not as bad as some. Like I said, apples and peaches like that full sun to get a lot good, healthy fruit. Some of the vining, not bushes, but vines themselves, tend to shade themselves. Mm-hmm. So they don't mind that. Grapes, you always see the grape hanging on the bottom. But it's not necessarily true for the ripening, the last week of ripening. But what I do on mine is go back and remove some of the top leaves or top branches or vines, or I forget what they call them. Little small vine, but at any rate, you take some of that so it can ripen fully. So that's an option. There's also bush fruits. We just planted some bush cherries. Rather than having a cherry tree, which tend to be huge, we got bush cherries, which they've developed just for this reason. It's a little more compact. They're only going to get about 5 to 6 feet high total, but they tend to stay bushy. So that was an option for us. Then there's blueberries. Everybody kind of likes blueberries, but they are finicky to work with. They like a very acidic soil, and it needs to be about 4.5, which is pretty darn acidic. If it's too high, they won't produce. If it's too low, they won't produce. I'm not a big fan of raising blueberries. They're just too much work, and the birds eat them. Now, I've got a few, that's fact, but the birds like them just as much as I do, and I don't seem to get it. And I don't want to kill the birds because I like birds. So there's better choices, for having a source of vitamin C. Raspberries, blackberries. All those don't mind a little shady area if your woods is nearby. They don't mind that. But all these things I'm talking about all take care and pruning and cutting back. The last one being the elderberry, and it being a superfood, it's highly suggestible to get at least one. Now, they do require some pruning or they'll get out of hand in a hurry.
Okay.
But excellent choice for health reasons. So
yeah.
try an elderberry. That's about all we got.
All right. It sounds good, Glenn. Well, we appreciate it. You've given us a lot to think about.
Covered a lot today.
Well, we'll be here again next week. And if you have any questions for Glenn, you can always text him 434-248-0704 or reach out to him through Facebook by going to Sustainable Living Made Easy, right?
Correct. We'll get to you as quick as we can.
All right, Glenn. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Join us again next week for Sustainable Living with Glenn Boblitz, helping you be prepared and not scared. This podcast drops every Friday anywhere you get your podcast.